Alright everyone, buckle up, because we're diving headfirst into the dark, moonlit world of Moon Knight. This is a title page, a full-on reveal of our guy in all his imposing glory. We see Moon Knight, a figure draped in flowing, ethereal white fabric, almost like a shroud set against a backdrop of deep, shadowy reds. The moonlight seems to catch on the sharp edges of his silver armor, the crescent moon emblem gleaming on his chest. He's holding a staff-like weapon in one hand and a metallic, almost cylindrical object in the other, a look of intense focus burning in those bright white eyes that stare out from behind his mask. You can practically feel the weight of his purpose, the weight of what's to come, just radiating off this image. It's ominous, it's powerful, it's Moon Knight. We jump back in time to earlier, outside what looks like a swanky nightclub. A man in a dark suit is holding up a small group, saying, "You can't come in." There's a dress code. A bewildered man from the group is asking, "Oh yeah, why's that?" Meanwhile, a second man, this one in immaculate white suit, stands bathed in an eerie blue glow and a crescent moon mask over his face. He responds to the bouncer's claim, "Impossible. I'm dressed to killed." The atmosphere is thick with unspoken tension, and you know something is about to go down. The stark contrast between the dark suits and Moon Knight's brilliant white creates a visually stunning, yet menacing effect. You can practically hear the underlying threat in his words, a quiet storm about to erupt. The scene unfolds like a dark, twisted bullet. We see a man, presumably the bouncer, his hands splayed against a wall, a distorted view of Moon Knight looming in the light behind him. We then follow Moon Knight as he calmly walks down a set of stairs, each step deliberate, as if measuring the very ground beneath his feet. This is contrasted by the bouncer on the floor, looking terrified, his face lit up by the dim lights in the club. There's a voice over echoing the bouncer's fear. If you're asking if he's back, if he's walking these streets like he owns them, if he's cracking skulls and striking terror, if he's got everyone spit scared all over again. The final words hit hard. Then, Moon Knight is back. The use of shadows and angles creates an atmosphere of mounting tension, emphasizing Moon Knight's return as a force of darkness. It's a visual reminder that he's not just a hero, but something to be truly feared. Alright, now we're switching gears to No. Inside a diner, a group of people are sitting in the booth. One man says to another, "Just like that." And the second responds, "Yeah, Frazier, just that." The scene cuts to a man with a mustache in a green jacket. He is stirring a mug of coffee and saying, "Look, I did freak beat a long time. These guys, these capes, they never stay dead for long. But Moon Knight, the real one, forget it." In the following panels, he is continuing to stir and drink from his cup, with the text, "I've known him a while. Nothing can keep him off his streets." A woman with blonde hair and a serious expression is at a table across from him, with the text, "You don't see how this creates a problem for the department? Flint. Maybe masked Vigs aren't illegal anymore, but we've got a crazy guy out there growing his stable." She seems worried and frustrated as the man in the green jacket responds, "Yeah, good luck with that." She asks, "What is SWAT? Going to go and pull him out of his midnight mission?" The man replies with a grin, "You go in there uninvited, you don't come out." Oh, it's all a mixture of unease and knowing glances, suggesting that Moon Knight's return is more than just a blip on the radar, and people are not just worried, they are also a bit afraid of him. The atmosphere is thick with apprehension. The tension continues to mount as the woman in blue is looking distraught and says, "He got before." A flashback of Moon Knight is shown fighting a diverse group of villains. We see Moon Knight dodging attacks, with lightning crackling around the bad guys. The text reads, "Wasn't Nip who did it though. That was Fisk Thunderbolts." Back in the diner, the man in the green jacket says, "And that put him where he wanted to be. You hear about what he did to Man Mountain Marco in the Myrmidon." The woman responds, "You think for a minute that it was a happy accident." Her voice filled with anger, she adds, "What are you saying, Flint? That Moon Knight's above the law." The man finishes his statement with a stern look. "What I'm saying is that you need to get to where I did, back when I was you." The scene closes with a shot of the diner sign as the green jacket man delivers a grim warning, "Moon Knight. He's a force of nature. A hurricane." He continues, "And a hurricane. You get out of the way and sweep up the broken glass after it's moved on." This page gives us more of an insight on the view that people have of Moon Knight and how he has evolved into a force of nature in the eyes of others, rather than just a vigilant. We transition back to the club where the woman's voice is heard saying, "Maybe that's why you're not police anymore, Flint." Moon Knight continues his descent into the club, and as he makes his way down the stairs, we're given a view of two men in dark suits and full face masks watching him. The man, Flint, is shown saying, "That's exactly why I'm not police anymore, Frazier," as he is shown to now also be in a full face mask. He continues, "Are you deaf or something? I got too close to him." In the following panel, we see Moon Knight speaking directly to the reader. "When things got ugly, and I'm talking cutting fingers off a perp, ugly, it was seen as my fault." We then see a panel of both masked men, each holding a staff, as Flint is heard saying, "That's what I'm trying to tell you, Frazier." The final panel shows an imposing image of a crescent moon as Flint ominously declares, "You get close to a hurricane and you get dead." The sense of danger escalates with each panel as we see the world through the eyes of both Flint and Moon Knight, a dangerous combination that has made even an ex-cop terrified. Moon Knight is now shown leaping into action. He is fighting with his masked opponents inside the club. He's saying, "Things have changed since you got cashiered, Flint. We don't have the luxury of taking a laissez-faire approach to violent maniacs on the streets." One of the masked men retorts, "What? You got rid of all the gangsters and killers and supervillains since I got retired?" In the next panel, we get an intense look at the battle as Moon Knight dodges an attack. Then, Flint is seen fighting hand to hand and asking, "Because you know how he died this time?" Moon Knight simply replies, "Saving this city," and the other man finishes, "The whole city." A final panel shows one of the masked men on the floor, defeated with the text, "He blew himself up, because that was the only way he could stop what was going to happen," and Moon Knight adding, "Which includes me, you and the entire department." The fighting choreography is fluid and dynamic, the dialogue is sharp and full of a sense of urgency. We get an understanding of the dangers of this world and why Moon Knight has taken on this mission. The stakes have been set, and it's all or nothing. Back in the diner, the woman demands, "And who told you that?" Flint is shown with a look of confusion as he responds, "What?" The woman presses him, saying, "This story about saving the city. Who told you that?" Her face is intense, and she adds, "One of his cronies. Or would cultist be a better phrase?" The man looks directly at the reader as he is saying, "Because your heroic suicide bomber Paul Moon Knight's been catching his actions in some very religious language." She continues, looking worried with the text, language that makes federal agencies prick up their ears. Now with an even more serious face, she points at him as he says, "No, you listen," then turns to the viewer, Egyptian. Then, with an aggressive look in his eyes, he says, "His midnight mission," he calls it, spouting off some mightiest. The woman cuts him off and says, "Superstitions about gods. Sounds pretty suspicious, Flint." The last panel of this page shows her looking very worried and asking, "Is Moon Knight a cult leader? Is he a terrorist?" Because it's looking like textbook cult dirt from where I'm sitting. The tone of the conversation has shifted, moving from concerned to accusatory, while also hinting at something much larger at play than a simple vigilant. Moon Knight's actions are now being viewed through a much darker lens. We get a series of profiles being shown. The first is a student of Reese Williams. The text states, "Surprise, he's got a teenage girl, Reese Williams, in his orbit. Though now a vampire, that's new." We then see a mugshot of a man with a shaved head, followed by the text. And this guy they call Soldier with a dozen priors, also a vampire now. Next, a face shot of a man with glasses, who is referred to as the mysterious Hunter's Moon, some kind of moon cultist guru. After this, an image of a woman with orange skin and tiger-like stripes with the text, "The requisite fallen celebrity, a has-been Avenger by the name of Grant Nelson, a K. Tigra." Finally, we see an image of a person in a black suit with a black ball for a head being chased by a police officer. The text adds, "And a loser supervillain, a Bal." This page highlights the diverse cast of characters that seem to be affiliated with Moon Knight's activities, from a teenage student to a former Avenger, all with unique backgrounds, but linked somehow to this story. This is a group of people who are not normally seen together, and it raises the question about how they all fit in this story. We now have a full page spread, and the focus returns to Moon Knight mid-action as he is jumping in the air. He is still in his white suit and holding his staff as the background is illuminated with a series of purple and blue beams. The text reads, "That's what is this?" Then below, "Do I need a lawyer?" It seems that Moon Knight is both puzzled by the situation and also has a sense of humor. This is a nice visual change, giving a moment of action and a brief reprieve from the dialogue-heavy previous pages. This page serves as a moment of pause, a breath of action before what we suspect will be another layer of mystery unveiled. We return to the action. Moon Knight is leaping over the masked men, and one of them says, "I thought you weren't close to Moon Knight, Flint." The text on the panel reads, "What would you need a lawyer for?" In the next panel, Moon Knight is closer to the ground, as one of the masked men says, "Isn't it guilty people who ask for lawyers?" The panel after that shows Moon Knight swinging his staff with the text, "You told me that you just wanted to talk." Moon Knight finishes, "Consult." The action continues seamlessly, with Moon Knight using his wit and combat skills to stay on the offensive. The question about needing a lawyer adds a new level of intrigue, while we are still focused on the action. The mystery of his purpose and the situation at hand has not been forgotten. As even in the heat of battle, the tone feels both tense and a little humorous. The masked men are fighting back, but they can't seem to keep up with Moon Knight. One of them is saying, "That's what we're doing, Flint." Talking. As Moon Knight continues to dodge, he replies, "Talking about an investigation." He is then shown taking a defensive posture, as he says, "So why don't you stop clutching at your pearls and tell me something real about Moon Knight?" The next panel shows Moon Knight is now holding the masked men at bay, with the text, "Not this force of nature, bull you've been feeding me while you drink the coffee I'm buying you." The final panel shows Moon Knight with a threatening pose and one of the masked men saying, "I don't like this." The back and forth between the fighting and the conversation is a masterclass in creating tension, as we continue to feel both the physical and intellectual sparring occurring. Moon Knight seems to have the upper hand, which he is using to get closer to answers. We cut back to the diner with the man in the green jacket saying, "We're done here." The woman grabs his arm and says, "You were police, Flint. It was Moon Knight who screwed you over, not the department." In the next panel, she is looking worried and adds, "Think about this." He turns towards her and is saying, "You think about this, Frazier Bark." He puts a $1 on the table and adds, "I'm not one of your street snitchers." The interaction is brief but loaded with tension, as the woman in blue looks concerned while the man seems to have reached his limit. The use of the $1 bill emphasizes the man's position. The mystery is starting to pull at the seams as the conversation has moved into something deeper and personal. The scene cuts back to Moon Knight inside the club as he is saying, "Nice night." He seems to be the only one that is unmasked. In the next panel, Moon Knight is further into the club. He is still surrounded by masked men. One of them says, "Mind if I join you?" And another adds, "This is the VIP, idiot." The final panel on the page shows Moon Knight standing in front of the crowd of masked men, and he says, "Boys, boys, boys. Don't you know who you're talking at?" The composition of the images is striking, using the contrast of light to make the unmasked man stand out against a sea of dark suits. The shift in his tone from casual to menacing is another example of Moon Knight's duality and unpredictability. The tension is palpable, as we see that he's not someone to be trifled with. The scene shifts to an area within the club, where Moon Knight is now standing tall in the background. A man with blonde hair, wearing a white suit and gold jewelry, is saying that there is Mr. Moon Knight, and he's a very important person indeed. As the man is talking, he is gesturing to one of the masked men that has joined him on the couch, and he is saying, "A chill's Fairchild, and this here is Carver. Please sit." The change of setting is stark, and it appears that Moon Knight is expected. The man with the blonde hair seems to be in a position of power, and the dialogue highlights the change in Moon Knight's status, as now he is both feared and respected. The man's relaxed posture and tone contrasts with the tension of the previous scenes, offering an intriguing shift. The blonde man on the couch is saying, If I'd have known you were coming, I'd have had you put on the list. Save all the unpleasantness. Can I offer you a drink, Moon Knight? Or perhaps a party favor? Moon Knight responds, Mr. Knight, please. And no, thank you. In a lower panel, we see that Moon Knight is reaching into his jacket, and there are two guns aimed at him by the masked men, with one of them stating he's going for it. Moon Knight has reached into his jacket and is revealing two small white sacks, and he states, boys, as I was saying, I brought my own. Got. Finally, the blonde man is now shown, holding one of the white sacks with chopsticks, and he says, well, Mr. Knight, it would appear you have exotic tastes indeed. Now, I'm just a simple country boy, what do we have here? The conversation has become a game of one-upmanship, and the subtle shift in body language from the masked men suggests that Moon Knight is unpredictable. The reveal of his party favors adds a layer of dark humor to the scene. The tone has once again shifted from a polite conversation into a tense and potentially explosive standoff. Moon Knight is looking directly at the reader as he is saying, it's a drug, Fairchild. Actual fairy dust. They call it glitter on the streets. Not from around here, not even close. The blonde man is now looking at the small white bag using his chopsticks, and he says, well, don't that beat all? He seems very interested. Moon Knight is now fixing his tie as he is saying, don't. Let me tell you how I've spent my week, Fairchild. The reveal of the drug and its origin adds another level to this story, and Moon Knight is taking control as we see he is not intimidated by his company. It is now clear that he has come here not to party, but to uncover the truth. The shift in Moon Knight's posture is also noticeable as he is now preparing to lay bare his grievances. Moon Knight continues his explanation, saying, seems that people have been selling glitter in my territory, and it's extremely addictive. He adds, more than anything earthly pharmaceuticals are capable of. Users turned into loyal addicts in record time. The text continues, which means that very quickly, they don't have a choice other than turning to crime to maintain a habit they can't kick. And finally, which means that whoever's supplying the glitter controls a larger and larger group of people desperate for a fix, and this city's one supplier. The panels on this page are full of details, from the posture of Moon Knight to the desperate looks of the people being held by the police. This page serves as a turning point as we understand this isn't just a fight against villains, but against addiction and exploitation. It paints a picture of a calculated operation with Moon Knight right in the middle of it. Moon Knight is very direct, stating, you. The man on the couch responds, addiction, ugly stuff, but I get the feeling you know a thing or two about addiction, Mr. Knight. Moon Knight cuts him off, saying, don't you? The blonde man then looks at the reader as he is saying, what's your poison? Drink, smoke, women, powders and pills. In the final panel, we see a close-up of Moon Knight's face as he is saying, violence. This is a face-off, a confrontation that is direct and full of meaning. The dialogue has moved away from pleasantries and is diving into the depths of their respective worlds. The final word from Moon Knight hangs in the air, a stark contrast to the laid-back attitude of the other man, a clear warning that he is not to be underestimated. The blonde man is now shown picking at some food and says, Hitcha, you and me, we have that in common. But I kicked that vice. I used to be a boxer, you know that. Moon Knight is sitting, almost relaxed, as he is saying, so was I. You any good? I bet you were the devil himself in the ring. The blonde man replies, I did okay. See, I come from nothing, Mr. Knight. He is shown pouring a drink, and he continues, from the farm, from the dirt. Kind of dirt you think'll never come out from under your nails. The cracks in your hands. But the farm wasn't big enough for me. In the final panels, the man is holding a drink and looks directly at the reader, stating, so I came to the city and I fought until I got to where I am now. Until I got everything I have now. Moon Knight is now standing and pointing directly at the blonde man saying, you're a gangster, Fairchild, a pusher. You're selling magic drugs that are destroying people. This page is a battle of words, a showdown between the two. Moon Knight reveals how much he knows and uses that to undermine Fairchild. Fairchild's story is a classic tale of ambition, but Moon Knight sees through the veneer of success, exposing the truth beneath it. The change in Moon Knight's posture shows that he is getting ready to move from talk to action. Moon Knight's challenge is met with a chilling indifference as the blonde man replies, "So what I am, Mr. Knight. What are you going to do about it?" Moon Knight then states, "I'll kill you, Fairchild." As Moon Knight closes the distance between them, the blonde man is shown smiling, stating, "The devil himself. You and I really ought to step into the ring sometime, boy." The panels are now closer, and the tension is building to a climax. The blonde man's taunt and the smile are both unnerving and provocative. It seems that he has accepted Moon Knight's challenge, and the battle is about to move to the next phase. The subtle changes in their faces and tones shows that this is a personal struggle for both men. The blonde man continues with a disturbing calmness, "But I keep my hands clean these days, Mr. Knight," as the sound effect shing fills the air. Moon Knight and the man with the red suit, Carver, have both pulled out their swords. The blonde man is then saying, "That's what Carver is for. She was Roxxon Corporate Military Special Forces. You know that." The scene shifts to show a close-up of Carver's sword, which is glowing with energy, and we see the text, "Only one of her unit to survive a combat mission into some place called Vanaheim." In the last panel, Moon Knight is looking intently as the text states, "Even brought back a Sovina." The action has moved from words to weapons. The blonde man continues to try to maintain control, but his relaxed demeanor is at odds with the violence that is about to explode. The revelation of Carver's background and her connection to the sword adds to the intrigue of the story. This isn't just a fight between two men, it's a battle that includes forces from a wider and more mysterious world. The blonde man, with a slightly manic grin, is saying, "Okay, Carver boys, time to saddle up. Mr. Knight, it's been an absolute pleasure." Moon Knight responds with a serious face, "Get out of the gutter business. This was me being nice, Fairchild." The scene then shows the blonde man walking away with his entourage as he is saying, "No, it wasn't, was it? You coming to warn me, putting all your cards on the table, what's it really about?" Moon Knight simply states, "You got me." The conversation has ended and there is no action, yet there is a very ominous feeling in the air. The blonde man is not backing down, but he is also giving up information. Moon Knight's final words reveal that he has an ulterior motive. The tension is still high, and we are left with a feeling that the game has only just begun. Moon Knight is left alone, standing in the middle of the room. As he says, "I like it when they see me coming." The panels are full of shadows, with Moon Knight seemingly being the only source of light. This single image is a powerful statement. Moon Knight is a figure that demands attention. The quiet menace in his final statement emphasizes the fact that he is not one to be underestimated. This moment of calm is almost more unnerving than the violence, as we know that he is not going to forget what he has uncovered. We cut back to the diner where the woman in blue is looking upset and seems to be wiping away a tear with the text, "Sniff." She has her phone open and it is making an caw sound. The woman gets up with a determined look and walks to the door as another character is shown at the door, silhouetted against the background. The woman in blue says, "Well," and the other replies, "Ow, I'm sure you did your best, Detective Frazier. An old cowboy like Flint, why I bet he's tough as shoe leather." The woman in blue gets into the car, saying, "I got nothing from Flint. Nothing I didn't already have." The other person adds, "Cowboy. Flint, he's from Gowanus." The page is a reflection of the previous conversation. It reveals that both the woman in blue and Moon Knight have their own plans and that they are not working together. The other character, who has not yet been introduced, provides some information and they seem to have their own agenda. It is also clear that the woman in blue is very determined and is not easily deterred. This page builds up the intrigue and adds a final layer of mystery. The story is closing in on a climax, as the blonde man is now seen in the backseat of a car with Carver next to him. He is saying, "Got all the answers, don't you? So answer me this, Detective Frazier. Am I going to have to cut you off? Because I know what that sniffle of yours is wanting." As he is speaking, the panel shows the woman in the car looking stressed and holding her head. She is then saying, "Or are you going to take care of my little Moon Knight problem?" The final image is a hand holding out one of the small white sacks with the text, "To be continued." The tension is at its highest and the stakes have been laid bare. The blonde man now has control, and the reader is left wondering where the woman's loyalties lie. This final page leaves us with so many questions and the promise of more to come. The mystery has just begun. Thanks for tuning in. Stay curious, stay awesome, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more amazing content.